Hey, Naomi, I'm so glad that you're able to call us. This is Mark on the other line. I'm so glad that you were able to call in and talk to us about what you've got going on. Dean, this woman is doing some amazing things. You know, like most people, when they think of, you know, we had a while back the ladies from Shoe Crazy that are into the wine, but a lot of people, they think of other kinds of liquors, and they think of liquors that are a little bit harsher, and they have like some very stereotypical kind of images of these kind of liquors. I'm thinking about like vodka and moonshine and things of that nature. And, you know, a lot of times, I remember growing up back in the day, I had a great uncle that made plum wine, which is basically like the same kind of stuff that Miss Naomie Lucas does. And I actually have an interesting story about that wine that he made and that I'll share as we get in further into the interview and everything, because it was kind of hilarious. But he made that kind of stuff. And a lot of times people associate it with, if you're from North Carolina or even anywhere in the Southeast or even the East Coast, a lot of people associate it with Andy Griffin and, of course, the Dukes of Hazzard and all of those kind of images, you know, the fast cars and all of that, people running around doing illegal kind of stuff. And it actually even created a whole industry, because it's my understanding that the moonshine industry is what created NASCAR. But
Correct.
So I want to talk to you, Naomi, about how you got into this business, because like I said, you're totally taking it to another image. You're not trying to go with the stereotypical image of like the guy in the overalls in the backwoods. You're actually trying to make people understand that it is an American art form, making of this kind of alcoholic spirits, and that we need to recognize it as such, and you're also giving it kind of a luxury element. So if you'll tell us a little bit about how you're doing this and a little bit about your mission, we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, so I actually was a global marketing director for the infamous Arthur Andersen, the famous Enron Arthur Andersen. And so, you know, I spent my initial career working at a firm as a global marketing director and, you know, working with Global 1000 clients. And so, you know, which is a step above the Fortune 500. And so I think, you know, with my corporate experience, you know, through the years, I ended up, while I was in corporate America, I am the granddaughter of a sharecropper. And my grandfather taught me very young in life that to whom much is given, much is required. And so even in the essence of building my corporate career, you know, I was also very philanthropic. And so I started doing these Wounded Warrior rides to raise money for amputees across the country. And so about 6 years ago, I was training for my first century ride. I was doing 50 and 70-mile rides with the teams, and so was in training to do my first 100-mile ride and went into cardiac arrest. When I did, I found that in my recovery process that there was no alcohol that was organic, all natural, gluten-free, ready to pour in that RTD section. I was so sick that I couldn't even walk from my living room to the front door without getting winded. And so for 2 years I was homebound between Duke and the Mayo Clinic. Nobody could figure out when my heart rate got above 140 beats per minute, I would go into cardiac arrest. Your heart rate can get 140 beats just by vacuuming.
Wow.
So, you know, so it was a very different kind of life that I was faced with. And so so because my friends started to have to come to the house to visit me rather than, you know, me going out with them and, you know, having the social life that I was used to, I started trying to search for drinks that could be served, you know, at my house. And could not find anything organic, gluten-free, all natural. And so when the doctors, Western medicine didn't work, I started turning towards Eastern medicine. And so my trainer at the time said, look, Naomi, let's take you to an all-clean diet and let's just do a detox of your entire system and let's, you know, do all clean everything. And so that forced me to have to look for clean alcohols. I couldn't find one. I was very blessed in my undergrad to go to UNC Chapel Hill. I majored in chemistry and English, dusted off that chemistry degree. And during the 2 years that I was homebound, believe it or not, I would have my family put me on a bar stool in the kitchen. I would make my grocery list of fruits and things like that. They would bring it to the house. They would go and get it for me, bring it back. And I would tinker in the kitchen for those 2 years to create what we now have, Southern Wicked Lemonade. And so, you know, as I studied, though, the industry, what I saw very quickly was that different countries claim the creation of different liquors. So Russia claims that they created vodka. Mexico claims tequila. The Caribbean, they claim rum. Well, the United States, we claim three spirits that the U.S. says this is what we created as a country. We created bourbon, we created whiskey, and we created moonshine. Moonshine, however, at the time had not been successful as a U.S. export. Primarily from what my research found was that it was the rest of the world saw it as backwoods and unrefined and inconsistent and illegal. And so I, you know, thought to create a moonshine product that was luxurious, something that didn't burn your vocal cords going down. And so in the process, I created this infusion process that we can infuse fruit into alcohol within 48 hours. The industry takes 10 to 15 days, which is, you know, amazing. And then we also created a spirit that was all natural, gluten-free, organically sweetened. In fact, on our next production run, it will actually be able to carry the highest level of kosher certification that you can have. And so, you know, we're just really, really excited about being able to give the consumer an option. It is 34 proof, our first round. We also got our 70 proof just approved. And so that 70 proof will make its debut this coming fall. And then we also have our first bourbon blend approved. So we're just very excited.
Sounds like it. And now one of the things that I've always been fascinated by is I was actually talking earlier today to my mom, and we were talking about we don't have any centenarians that we can remember. We do have some that really made it to their 90s and some well into their 90s in terms of their lifespan and everything. But when you talk to people that lived a long time or they lived into their century marks and everything, it's usually the folks that are sitting there telling you that they have done kind of what you've done. They've gone and they tell you that they, you know, drink on a regular basis. It's usually something that is more healthy or not, and they tell you about other things that are supposedly bad habits that they do on a regular basis, and that's how they make it into the centenarian mark. So I just wondered in your marketing how you deal with that, because like I said, I'm not saying that that's what you do, but I'm just saying, but that's just the kind of the marketing standpoint of what a lot of people, if you read on, like even when the news anchor, the weather guy with Willard Scott was talking to people about how they made it to the century mark, oftentimes they would tell you about everything they did wrong, and you'd be sitting there going like, wait a minute, that's totally opposite of what the doctors have told me.
You know, I think I feel bad about quoting the Bible, but you know, the Bible says, there's scripture that says that laughter is as medicine, is like good medicine to the soul. And I believe that when you are happy in life and when you are social and you're, you know, having a good time, I mean, the whole idea of creating Southern Wicked Lemonade was initially I thought of it as a sipping cocktail. You know, back in the day when you could sit on your back porch and, you know, just think back on life and just think about all the blessings that occurred, you know, in your life, you know, and just relaxing. And to me, you know, the alcohol industry has done so much to change the idea of sipping a cocktail to, you know, doing shots and, you know, drinking to get inebriated or drinking, you know, because, of course, with the alcohol industry, the more you drink, the more money they make. Well, my idea when I created Southern Wicked Lemonade was, you know, no, you know, it's a drink that's refined to be sipped, to be enjoyed, because I don't believe that you can savor a moment if you can't remember the moment.
Yeah, that's very true. You have to be able to remember the moment and things of that nature. And a lot of times, those kind of like things are what winds up becoming like a social environment. But I'm actually going to get to that story that I said I was going to tell earlier. I actually, at a much younger age, I'm in my 50s now, but I think I was probably, the National Black Theater Festival was in its early infancy, so I met the young lady there from Houston, and we got to talking. I invited her to a family outing. I can't remember what it was. It might have been one of those family outings that we were ready to come up on, like Easter, and this was like 10 or 15 years ago. She came and visited me and everything. There was for whatever reasons, no real chemistry going on. So she actually came to the family outing, and she wound up doing a lot of time spending crocheting. Now, we're at a family outing. I've invited her here. My family's looking at me like, what is your problem? You invited this young lady. She's crocheting. You know, people in my family are trying to be social and do what you're talking about that you do with these things. So they're being sociable with her, and they're like, come on, you need to go ahead and just trying to pull her into the conversation, even if it's not going to become like a date environment or a potential spouse or whatever. They just wanted to create at least a fine social environment. She's still doing the crocheting thing. Now, I told you I had a great uncle. This great uncle has since passed on. But he proceeded to make his plum wine in the back. And my brother called me back, and we were sitting over there sipping the plum wine. It might have been peach, but it was definitely different flavors that he made of the old-fashioned kinds of liquors and everything. She realized that this was going on. She came back and joined us. It was like a 180-degree turn in terms of the personality, because all my family's looking at me like, what happened? This was the antisocial child. All of a sudden, now she's like this social.
Right, yeah.
Because I remember,
yeah. Go ahead.
I said, because I remember even as she went, like I said, she stayed at what's now the Marriott, whatever that was at that time, the Omni, and she eventually flew back. But the one thing I remember about the conversation, and we just totally lost touch, is that my uncle's name was Lyons, and he made like this homemade liquor, and he called it Lyons Park. And I remember as she was leaving, she was like, I think even a couple of final conversations afterwards, because we did talk briefly afterwards a few times, she was like, do you think you could get your uncle to send me some of that Lyons Park liquor back home? I'm sitting there going like, no, the family doesn't really like you that much.
That's awful. Funny, but awful.
True.
So, well, you know, one of the things that we do that's very unique as a company is we do what we call proprietary blends. And the reason why we created the division of proprietary blends is because when I tried to get my recipes approved, in alcohol, you can work under someone else's license, and that will facilitate your license being done in like a third of the time. It would take 3 to 4 months versus, 10, 11 months getting approved. And so there were some moonshine distilleries here in North Carolina that were approached by the U.S. Department of Commerce and the Department of Agriculture and on my behalf to see if I could work under their license. And they all said no. And so that is why Southern Wicked Lemonade is actually made in Colorado and not in North Carolina. So, 10 months later, we have our licenses. But what I learned is, that I would, I always felt like that it is upon the shoulders of those who came before me that I stand on. And once we got our licenses, I wanted to then lend my shoulders to other families or other, recipe holders that wanted to have their liquor become legal and not spend the $1 million, $2 million it costs to launch a brand. And so we do have a proprietary blend division that we can talk to, families about, that if they want to take their liquor, to become legal, that they can talk to our proprietary blend division, and we can talk about, how we go about doing that. And during the process, the family continues, even after we go into partnership with them, they own 100% of the recipe.
Wow. Now, just one of the things, Naomie, if you could explain it, because even with the proprietary, it got me to thinking about this and everything. We still hear stories on the news. So there must be some element of the moonshine industry that is still not legal. Of course, you're in the part that is legal, but you still hear of people making a bust on people that are doing it in the backwoods. So what is the dividing line between what is allowed and what is not allowed? Because, like I said, even though if you turn on the news, I don't care where it is, but particularly in the South, you oftentimes hear of people that are doing it way back in the country somewhere, and they're getting busted for it. So what is the dividing line?
Well, I mean, it's the whole licensing process. it is a very invasive process, and it's a very expensive process.